Hey, I'm Shubrotham and welcome to another video. And in this video, I'm going to talk about Karma Yoga. It's really cold and we're approaching winter, and it's basically the end of this series on the various kinds of yoga. So when we're talking about Karma Yoga, we're really talking about the yoga of works. So, karma means work, basically. Kar. Tum kya kar rahe ho? What are you doing, Kar. So, basically it's the yoga where you're not really doing asanas or pranayam or, worshipping God or going through these really complicated philosophies. You're basically leading life, everyday life, go to your job, at the corporate, at the shop, whatever it is, and you come back home. You come back home to your wife, to your husband, to your kids, or if you're alone, single, back to your pet. I'm guessing someone who's single must at least have a pet, or if not a pet, back to your, computer or your social media network. So it basically is inclusive of all the ordinary and mundane activities of life. So Karma Yoga basically has got a lot to do with activity. The activities of life, basically. So, when we're talking about Karma Yoga, you're really trying to bring the mind under control by way of controlling the effects of causes, okay? Because let's take an example from Vivekananda's Karma Yoga and how he explains it. So he says that, you go out during the day and there are, and there are like so many people that you meet, right? And there's this one person that you just see, and somehow the image of that person is just stuck in your mind and you can't get it out, right? There are hundreds of thoughts that just come about this person, many kinds of curiosities, and you're kind of like, what's going on? Like, why am I thinking about this person so much, even while you're working? So what happens when the image of a person, in this case, when it comes and impresses itself on your mind, is called an impression, okay? And the Buddha goes further, and he says that, the goal and the objective during meditation is to get rid of all imprints from the world of the senses. And so Vivekananda says it is to avoid or throw out any kind of sense impressions. So in a sense, what you're doing is, whatever work that you have, whether it's at the factory, whether it's at your computer, whether you're working from home, whether you're a housewife or a house husband, whether you're a babysitter, whatever it is, you have a job, right? You have a duty, and as a householder, because Karma Yoga is very good for people who are, who are family people, who have families, or who are living in the thick of society, and who can't sort of like go out into the forests or, like shamans, just be all alone in their huts, chanting all these mantras and making all these magic potions. That's not for everybody. But Karma Yoga, in my opinion, is a great way for everybody to practice the simplest form of yoga. But hold on. Yeah, sure, it's simple, but in effect, it's actually really, really difficult. So hear me out. We're talking about blocking the mind from receiving any sense impression. That's step number one. Step number two is to completely put your mind to work. Whatever work it is, whatever purpose in life it is that you are fulfilling, whether that is to your family, whether that is to yourself, whether that's to any commitment that you've got in society, it is to put your mind, your body, all of your emotional strength into that one area, and to be able to just focus on that area completely and not be bothered by any sort of upheaval that happens in life or in society, and to be absolutely grounded, absolutely stable, unshaken. And that's the quality of earth. It's as hard as a rock solid foundation. These are all grounding phrases, you know. So basically a karma yogi is not shaken through the effects of actions, okay? You could, this is just for example, okay? If a karma yogi were to receive the greatest setback in his job, or, you know, was to get a serious kind of a disease, just by way of fulfilling his or her duty and using that willpower to get through life and to resilience is the word here. So a karma yogi is really someone who is very resilient, who never gives up, who never just breaks down. Okay, so it's basically like what a hatha yogi does during an internal retention. So the hatha yogi takes in the breath, holds it in, and really focuses on just holding it together, right? And not letting it sort of like drift away. So this is what creates dridata, or rock solid strength. And then by means of yogic locks and bandhas, slowly allows the energy to release in a very controlled way. So karma yogi, basically, whatever challenges or whatever reactions that come from everyday life, the karma yogi is able to sort of like manage these reactions in an expert manner with proficiency. And so in talking about karma yoga, Krishna tells Arjuna that yoga is skill in works. Okay, so basically, the karma yogi does not let, you know, the result of an action, whether it's good or bad, to affect the stability of his mind or her mind, you know. The karma yogi remains the same in loss or in success. The karma yogi is absolutely a supreme yogi, you know. Obviously, Vivekananda goes on to, you know, describe certain traits of a true karma yogi, you know. A karma yogi is supposed to sort of like have this duty towards his community or to society. You know, I think back in those days and from where he came from, you know, obviously society was very patriarchal. You know, and so there was a certain role that a man had to fulfill, and a certain role that a woman had to fulfill. Obviously, you know, these roles and these demarcations are slowly fading away, and, you know, a man is doing what a woman should have been doing, you know, back in those days, and vice versa. So, you know, we're progressing as a society. There's nothing wrong in that. So he gives out certain traits, but just sort of like take it as it is, and understand that he came from a different age. Essentially, a karma yogi is supposed to be very brave and courageous, you know. The absolute opposite of, you know, the yogi who practices sort of like Raja Yoga, or, you know, the sannyasis, which was very common back in the day, you know, where they left society like Shiv, went out into the forests or into the mountains and escaped the responsibilities of life. The karma yogi does the exact opposite. The karma yogi completely involves himself or herself into life. You know, the life is, there's a greater involvement in life. And so the karma yogi is like, whatever challenge there is or whatever pleasure there is, you know, I'm going to take it in. And I'm going to live it, and I'm going to experience it, but I'm not going to be attached to the results of it. You know, I'm going to keep my mind absolutely pure and pristine. So, let's say that I win the lottery the next week. You know, if I'm a karma yogi, I'm going to be like, well, I won the lottery. Wow, that's amazing, you know. Now I've got a certain amount of money to pay to, you know, so and so many people in my family, or let me do a bit of charity. Let's save some money for the future, and so on and so forth, you know. Controlling the senses in this way just like a hatha yogi does. Controlling the life force, controlling the urges, the desires, just like any other kind of yogi does, is one of the things that a karma yogi, keeps or holds as an objective. Okay, so the karma yogi is not gonna like win a lottery and spend it on, gosh, I don't know, partying and women and men and just losing all that money within a matter of time. That's not a karma yogi. That's a bhogi. So the difference between a bhogi and a yogi is that the yogi is someone who restrains the senses and brings things together into union. Okay? The force, the very fact that when you look at Ashtanga Yoga, the eight-limbed yoga of Patanjali, for example, you find somewhere that there is this thing that you come across which is called brahmacharya, or moving with the Brahman, or with the ultimate existence, or with that which pervades all of existence. Your consciousness moves along with that. This power which has come through procreation, which is the seed of all things, which is your sexual energy, which is the thing that gives birth to your senses and to desire, that's something that the yogi pulls back so that he or she goes back to the original root of all creation and therefore back to the source, and not sort of like lose himself or herself in this chaos of creation, this confusion, And so what you find that when a yogi dies, it doesn't matter what kind of yoga they're doing, you find that these yogis pass away very peacefully. They have no fear of death, essentially. There will be suffering, there will be agony, probably, but they're brave about it. They're tranquil, and they just pass away very, very smoothly. Not in a chaotic way. Not with all of this rage or sadness and all of these horrible, hellish, sentiments. And that's why they say control your desires, because your nerves are going to follow through. And this is a whole topic altogether. Okay, I'm just going to concentrate on karma yoga because it's important to talk about this, because we're talking about controlling the effects of actions. Okay, so we're talking about if someone hits you, right, you shouldn't react. You should be able to control your nerves to that extent. So in the same way, a karma yogi just goes along life fulfilling his or her duty to the point that they are so involved in that concentration that the mind becomes so one-pointed on whatever duty that they are fulfilling that it becomes like a hatha yogi or like a raj yogi, whose mind becomes absolutely one-pointed when they're practicing an asana or doing a very high-level meditation. So, everybody's interested in siddhis nowadays, right? Like the yogic powers. Back in the day, it was said to be very normal, and why not? I'm sure soon science will sort of like be like, okay, yeah, we've done this experiment and so and so and so and so. It's true, it exists. But there's a story, for example, of a sannyasin, right, who really wanted these powers, and he was like desperate for them. So he went out into the forest and he practiced these severe penances, for months and months together. And one fine day, he realized that he could feel it. He could feel that he had the power. And so a bird, I don't know how the story goes exactly, because I read this like way back, like so many years back. So I think the story goes something like this. So he was sitting underneath a tree and he was meditating, getting all of these powers, and a bird sitting above him, poops on his head, and he's really offended by that. He's like, how dare you take a dump on my head, you stupid bird. And so he gets up, he looks, he's got so much of this tapasya. Shiv is the god of tapas. Shiv is the god of penance. So whenever there's any kind of austerity being done, or whenever a person is into austerities, the person takes on a certain quality that is represented by the Indian god Shiv. So this person gets this power of burning stuff, and so, you heard of the story of how Shiv looks at Kam and burns him. So in the same way, this person looks at the bird. How dare you, take a dump on my head, and looks at it with this intensity, and the bird is burnt to death, right? And he feels really good about this. The spiritual ego starts developing, and he goes out into the city, and he's like, yeah, I'm the boss now. Nobody can do anything to me, And he's still a sannyasin, and he's still, begging because he needs to eat food, because that's what sannyasins do. They feel that, they've taken a vow of celibacy and to not have any money, to be penniless, And so he goes out into the city, and he approaches, different houses, and he starts telling people how he burnt the bird, so they better not mess around with him and not refuse him and give him the money that he deserves, whatever it is, the coins or rice or whatever. So people are afraid, and this guy is developing quite a strong reputation as a really dangerous person who can do stuff to you. Eventually he goes to the house of a housewife, he knocks on the door and nobody's answering, but he can hear her. Shouting at the kids and sort of like chastising them because they're being naughty. And he's banging, even more fervently. He's like, open the door, damn it, lady. I mean, hello, I'm here. Like, what the hell? And after a while, the lady comes and is like, what do you want? And this dude is like raging in anger, right? He's like, man, you know what I did? Before he could speak, she's like, yeah, I know what you did. You burnt a bird, big deal, I know where you come from, I know who's your guru. And she starts just like telling everything about him. And he's stumped, he's stupefied, and he's like, but how do you know all of these things? And why do I feel so powerless in front of you? And she's like, well, you're not the only one doing yoga, I mean, I'm here taking care of my kids and doing my duty. I got to take care of my husband when he gets back from work. My mind is so concentrated on the activities of everyday life that what you got by sitting under a tree and doing these yoga techniques, these meditation techniques that your guru taught, I'm doing them every single day. It's just that the method is different. Now, what you want to do is, if you really want to know more about yoga, go to the butcher downtown and, see if you're the best yogi on planet Earth, and see if you have all these great siddhis to burn him as well. So the story goes that he goes down to the butcher, and he's shocked because the butcher kind of like, shows him a few miracles of his own, and the sannyasin is humbled and is like, well, these are karma yogis, and gosh, they get the same kind of powers that I do, just through penance. So you're obviously not going to do karma yoga because you want to get like superpowers. It's just like, it's ridiculous. I'm sure if a skeptic is hearing this, he would be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Like powers, like what is this, like Marvel, like Avengers stuff? I mean, is he watching too much of like these DC Marvel movies? But you know what? It's just by way of examples. It's just by way of an example, and it's just to show that you don't have to really be proud of doing other kinds of yoga, especially the gyanis, the intellectuals, have this spiritual pride where they think that they know a lot, and they tend to boast. But a karma yogi basically is able to bring all of his or her senses under control and get the same results of meditation just by meditating on the work that they do every single day. Whether it's cleaning the house, whether it's working at an office, whether it's taking care of your business, it's all karma yoga. It's getting to union with that one universal spirit that pervades all, by way of involving yourself in life and really coming into contact with the spirit in the most in a way that is very in a way that does not sort of like get you out of life, you know. And this is what a lot of people who do yoga don't understand, is that there could be somebody who's sort of like doing yoga, you know, all the hatha yoga and everything, and there could be another person who doesn't do any yoga and is just a householder, but, you know, has the same power and the same degree of meditation. So if you would tell that person to sit down and meditate, that person would just meditate just like that. So karma yoga basically involves your ability to control your senses, to hold your desires in check, okay? By bringing your mind into one union by focusing on work. And there's a lot to read about when it comes to karma yoga, so take your time and go on the net and read about it. You know, in this one video, I'm just going to talk very briefly about what karma yoga is, and the rest is for you to practice. A very good reference would be the Karma Yoga, which was written by Swami Vivekananda. That's more comprehensive. So I'm going to end this video at this, and thank you for joining me. And I'm going to begin with a few new videos from the next week. And this is the end of the yoga series. So thank you for joining me, and bye-bye.